Imagine 63 applicants packing the glass lobby at Nexara, massive polished men all desperately trying to look the part. Then the revolving door spun and Dominic Shaw quietly stepped inside. A wrinkled shirt and worn boots. Behind him stood a 6-year-old girl gripping her white stuffed rabbit. The shallow laughter started almost immediately. Someone mocked the preschool drop-off, but Dominic kept his absolute calm. He gently set his daughter down, smoothed her hair, and stepped onto the floor. 30 seconds later, the loud 253-pound champion lay face down on the mat. The mockery stopped instantly. Even the CEO, Giselle Park, watched in utter silence from the sidelines. Her pulse raced faster than she would ever care to admit. This underestimated man would soon be the only shield protecting her from total ruin. Let's look closer at how this Monday morning actually began at Nexara. 42 floors of blue glass towered high over the eastern city skyline. It housed one of the most influential security tech firms on the coast. But on this day, the lobby was transformed into an intense arena. 63 hopefuls packed the lobby in 2 very long rows. Every single applicant handpicked. Each man strutted with the loud, arrogant posture of someone who mistook massive muscles for actual capability. They were former police, professional fighters, and decorated military veterans. These men spent entire careers getting paid to look imposing, and they knew it. The entire room reeked of desperate ambition and fresh shoe polish. Then the revolving door turned and in walked the quiet Dominic Shaw. Hunter Voss marched across the lobby before the receptionist could even speak. 38 years old, his massive shoulders practically bursting out of his suit. He possessed that noisy, empty confidence of a man assuming victory before a single punch was thrown. As Nexara's acting security chief, Hunter felt deeply threatened by this unannounced open tryout. He chose to disguise his rising panic with a display of pure, deliberate cruelty. He blocked Dominic's path, leaning in close to show off his physical size. "This is not a daycare, buddy. The preschool entrance is in the basement." Loud, mocking laughter echoed from the chairs. Logan Cross sat up front, arms tightly crossed, sprawling out like he owned the room. He offered a slow, smug nod. Logan was a massive 253-pound professional fighter with 3 regional titles to his name. He was the loudest, most boastful candidate there, and he fully believed his own hype. He had been thoroughly enjoying his easy morning. Dominic met his gaze. His quiet voice carried absolutely zero heat. "I have a 9 o'clock appointment. My name is on the list." Hunter looked down at his tablet. A sudden shadow crossed his face, a brief tightening he tried desperately to hide. Dominic Shaw's name sat right at the very top of his roster. Handpicked late Sunday afternoon, personally added by the company's CEO, Giselle Park. Hunter aggressively tapped the glass and shoved the tablet away, remaining totally silent. He gestured toward the testing arena with a sharp, highly dismissive nod. Little Luna was led over to a quiet waiting area near reception. A thoughtful receptionist had set up a small coloring station just for her. She quietly sat down, set her stuffed rabbit aside, and began to color without saying a word. Dominic calmly stepped into the testing arena. True strength never brags with heavy muscles. It stays calm, waiting for the decisive moment. You and I know real power never has to shout. Candidates got 3 minutes, 1 examiner, and surprise scenarios. The guys before Dominic arrived waving flashy security badges, thick portfolios, and framed photos of themselves with high-profile clients. One guy actually brought a 12-page executive security folder. 2 even started by bragging, "I have been doing this for 15 years." Then Dominic stepped up empty-handed. The recruiter could only stare. "Where is your resume?" Dominic simply slid a single blank page forward. It held only a phone number and 1 typed sentence. "Call this number for verification." The evaluator just stared. Elite guard Hunter Voss crossed his arms and scoffed loudly. It was one of those theatrical size guys use when they desperately want everyone watching them. "You kidding me?" Hunter sneered. "Nope," Dominic replied quietly. The first round closed with a high-pressure threat assessment. Each candidate watched a 90-second clip of a crowded dummy event. Crowds of actors shifted constantly around the target in the front. They had 30 seconds to identify threats and trigger a protocol. Hotshot Logan Cross studied the screen, pausing for 2 seconds. Then he confidently called out 4 of the obvious threats. He made sure everyone heard his confidence. The others nodded, easily impressed. Dominic quietly watched the screen once. Standing perfectly still, hands down, he murmured. 6 obvious threats, 2 hidden. That blind spot by the 3rd left pillar leaves a 4-foot gap for an ambush. And the man wearing the green coat has shifted his hands 3 times since the video started. He has a weapon but hasn't drawn it yet. Utter silence hit the room. Lucky guess, Hunter sneered. Dominic ignored the noise and sat down quietly. Up on the 38th floor, CEO Giselle Park watched the live feed on her monitor. Sitting quietly, a clean notepad rested on her lap. She had not written a single word in 20 minutes. Her assistant, Madison Cole, watched silently from the doorway. He doesn't look like a typical bodyguard, Madison noted quietly. No, Giselle murmured in agreement. He doesn't. You see, 3 weeks ago, a blank envelope arrived on Giselle's desk. Inside was a 12-page dossier detailing this quiet man, Dominic Shaw. Combat records, deep risk profiles, and psych tests, but absolutely no return address. At the very bottom, a single typed line stood out. She will need him. Giselle tried tracing that number immediately. But the search yielded absolutely nothing, no name attached. On screen, Dominic sat waiting, completely unbothered, wearing that same calm expression. No boastful posturing, no fake toughness, just absolute focus. Giselle tapped her pen on the desk once, then let it fall. Stick with me here, because this is where empty egos take over. The combat bracket went up and every loudmouth stared, hungry for action. On paper, most matchups seemed balanced, except for one. Hunter matched the quiet father against the notoriously brutal Logan Cross. You and I both know why. Hunter rigged the bracket, smiling like a bully eager to beat some respect into the quiet man who refused to boast. If this quiet father... Let's look at this unknown dad, a total anomaly on her personal list. The showy elites figured he would get crushed in the very first round. That way, this quiet puzzle is solved before it gets inconvenient. Logan Cross checked the fight bracket and smiled. Not a cruel smirk, just confident. He was not naturally cruel, he just could not see a quiet threat. The other flashy contenders circled the mat, some already recording on their phones. The room shifted to a mix of cheap entertainment and intense anticipation. They fully expected the loud giant to easily erase this quiet puzzle. Then their noisy, predictable world would make perfect sense again. Upstairs, Madison leaned over the security feed. Giselle, they matched him against Cross. The corporate leader was already on her feet, quietly smoothing her jacket. Are you going down there? Madison asked. The screen is too small, Giselle replied, stepping out into the hall. She entered the training gym without any loud announcements or advance warning. No big security escort, just her assistant following 3 steps behind in silence. The moment Giselle filled that doorway, the room's arrogant energy totally flatlined. All that loud, boastful muscle tension instantly snapped into a much sharper focus. Postures stiffened. All chatter died instantly as Hunter rushed to greet her. Miss Park, you do not need to. Continue, she ordered, looking past him. She did not spare the boastful giant a glance. She had him figured out. Big, flashy, and loud, completely predictable, her eyes locked onto the calm father instead. He crouched at the edge of the fight mat, calmly retying his shoe. He paid the loud giant no attention. He was not watching the smirking crowd. He was not even looking at her. In her 12 years as the absolute youngest leader in Nexara corporate history, she had met hundreds of elite candidates, trying desperately to show off their worth. Look, Dominic was the only person who did not care about impressing anyone. Or he just found the distraction completely irrelevant. That absolute stillness grabbed her focus harder than any loud combat drill all morning. Logan cracked his neck, stepped up, and glared at the father with smug confidence. Are you sure you do not want to hand this over to someone else? Mocking laughter filled the gym. Dominic just calmly finished tying his shoe. He stood up, ignoring the boastful taunts and the smirking crowd completely. He stepped onto the mat, calmly moving to face the exact center. Moving with the stillness of a professional who knew exactly how this would end. Down the hall in the waiting room, his little daughter put her crayons away. She watched through the observation window, calm and relaxed in her seat. A nervous receptionist looked down at the child, then out at the dangerous mat. Is your father very strong? The woman asked. Luna hugged her toy tightly. He never loses, she replied with quiet certainty. Because real strength does not shout, it waits. The referee raised his hand. The room held its breath. The timer beeped and the giant charged forward. No hesitation, no tricks. The massive candidate had already crushed 4 opponents today. Each fight lasted under 40 seconds, using the same aggressive style: close the distance. Grab, control their weight, and slam them down. It always worked. He made his move with the quiet certainty of a mathematician solving an equation. Dominic drifted back, no desperate scramble, just one perfectly calm, calculated step. He shifted his weight to his left foot, quietly altering the big bodyguard's approach by exactly 6 degrees. It was virtually invisible. Yet that tiny adjustment left Logan's massive hand clutching nothing but empty air. No one noticed. The boastful giant quickly recovered and lunged right back at him. By the 9th second, the CEO's breath caught, her composure completely shattered. Her eyes were locked onto Dominic. His gaze did not chase the giant's frantic punches like some noisy, reactive street fighter. He remained perfectly still, reading a much deeper level of movement. He saw a flow of action hidden far beneath the superficial chaos. Logan charged a 3rd time. With absolute composure, Dominic offered him a microscopic opening. Just a quiet, deliberate illusion of vulnerability. Yet every aggressive, heavy blow struck nothing but thin air. Unconsciously, the stunned female CEO gripped the wooden doorframe for support. By the 17th second, a quiet focus sharpened in Dominic's eyes. He knew exactly what to do after 16 seconds of pure observation. Having quietly decoded his opponent, at the 18th second, Dominic stepped directly into the attack. Let us watch closely, because the decisive moment unfolded in a mere flash. He locked his hand onto Logan's elbow joint. Then, with effortless precision, he completely unbalanced the massive fighter's center of gravity. It was a redirection so quiet and mathematically precise that the giant's own aggressive power defeated him. This was not boastful boxing or martial arts, it was pure, silent mastery. A level of skill the loud crowd could not even name. The 253-pound champion, with all his boastful titles, slammed face down onto the mat and froze. Total time 27 seconds, the entire room went dead silent. Dominic calmly stepped back and stood straight, his steady breathing showing no sign of effort. With a simple, non-boastful handcheck, the quiet father calmly stepped off the mat. The stunned evaluator stood frozen, holding his notes. The sheet slipped from his hand, the quiet rustle on the floor breaking the stunned silence. Dozens of phones had been raised to capture what they foolishly assumed would be a quick, embarrassing defeat, but they were still recording. Nobody had the presence of mind to stop. Little Luna slipped from her chair the moment the loud commotion vanished into absolute quiet. She walked over to her father with the serious determination of a 6-year-old. "Dad, are you done?" Dominic knelt down to her level with gentle ease. He looked at her with the same calm, undivided attention he gave to everything. "All done," he said softly. "Should we go find you some orange juice?" Luna considered this gravely. With ice," the father promised. He stood up, took her small hand, and calmly walked toward the exit. Behind them, the defeated giant was helped up by 2 other muscular candidates who tried desperately to pretend they had anticipated this quiet display of absolute dominance. Giselle Park stood by the door, her hand slowly slipping off the frame. She turned and walked back to the elevator, utterly silenced by his mastery. Madison followed closely. "You and I both know why silence filled that long, empty corridor." Madison finally spoke, keeping her voice quiet. His breathing didn't change. "I know," Giselle murmured, pressing the elevator call button. The steel doors parted and she stepped inside. Somewhere between the lobby and the 38th floor. She admitted, strictly as a professional security observer, that she had not looked at another bodyguard candidate for 7 straight minutes. She selected him before the trial even ended. 62 loud elite fighters waited in the hall when Madison appeared, quietly asking Dominic Shaw to follow her. The showy candidates exchanged glances. Hunter Voss adjusted his jacket, about to protest. But Madison was already walking away, and Dominic calmly followed her. Little Luna walked right beside him, her toy tucked under her arm. He did not wait around for anyone's permission to leave. The 38th floor had that heavy, expensive quiet, not silent, just completely undisturbed by outside chaos. Giselle's quiet corner office occupied the northeast. Massive glass windows framed the sprawling city below in clean, orderly grids. Books sat color-coded. Her heavy wooden desk held exactly 3 items: a computer screen, a simple notepad, and a glass of water. No flashy decorations, nothing personal at all. Luna entered, stopped, and silently scanned the office with the intense focus of a natural observer. "It is nice in here," she noted, "but there are no plants." Giselle, who had been quietly evaluating Dominic from her desk, looked down at the child. A quiet moment passed. "I know," she replied calmly. She locked eyes with Dominic again, silently signaling the conversation was officially over. Yet a subtle shift in the room's energy lingered on. She slid a file across the wood. "Sit down," he quietly complied. Luna climbed into the adjacent chair, pulled out a notebook, and calmly started drawing, completely unbothered. When asked about his flawless combat victory, he merely mentioned training in specific environments. He did not boast or elaborate, so she questioned his military record. He calmly noted that the details were right in the folder. "Now look closely with me." She asked who had sent that 12-page file on him. He stared at the folder. For 2 seconds, a tiny calculation flickered deep behind his eyes. Swift recognition, instant calculation, and then absolute, disciplined calm. "I do not know," he said. She studied him intently. He was speaking the complete truth, and that quiet certainty unsettled her deeply. "What salary are you asking for?" she finally inquired. He calmly gave a number. It was completely reasonable, neither suspiciously low nor boastfully inflated. It was the price of a man who knew exactly what his protection was worth, ignoring corporate noise. She signed the executive protection contract with zero hesitation. Meanwhile, downstairs, the arrogant Hunter Voss received the rejection text. He stood frozen in the hallway, his boastful confidence completely shattered as he stared at the screen. Then he dialed a secret number, one you and I would never find in the corporate directory. The quiet conversation lasted exactly 40 seconds. When he finished, he pocketed his phone, smoothed his expensive tailored jacket, and went right back inside to finish the tryout as though absolutely nothing had happened. Over his first week on duty, Dominic operated strictly like a shadow. He positioned himself exactly 1 step behind Giselle, not 2 steps back, never beside her, just 1 step. You and I know that quiet experts never seek applause. Giselle noticed his disciplined positioning by day 2 but said absolutely nothing. His execution was effortless, exactly how real disciplined security should be handled. Look closely. You'll see he notices sluggish door hinges before even reaching them. He silently scanned meeting rooms long before his boss arrived. No showy gestures, just a calm half-second pause at the threshold. A single quiet sweep of the room. He could read the unspoken tension before anyone even opened their mouth. In 7 years leading Nexera, Giselle never had a guard so quiet she forgot he was there. Usually, she spent her energy trying to avoid her loud security teams. But with him, there was no need to hide. She noticed he never stared at her the way other people did. You know that desperate, twitchy energy people show around a powerful executive? That shallow performance, the desperate urge to suck up, he had none of it. He did not hover just because she held the title of CEO. He stood nearby for one quiet reason: keeping her safe was his duty. His silent, steady presence was so rare, it took her 3 days to recognize it. On his 5th day on the job, daycare called at noon. His little daughter's babysitter had an emergency and could not make it. Dominic calmly stepped to the office door and murmured to Madison. Madison entered the room and explained the situation to the CEO. She framed it as a scheduling conflict that required his departure. "Bring her here," Giselle instructed. Madison hesitated, but Giselle was already working. 45 minutes later, little Luna arrived with her backpack and crayons. She greeted the executive quietly, placing her toy Pepper on the couch. Then she sat coloring in silence all afternoon, not making a single sound. At 4:30, the quiet child stepped up and handed Giselle some paper. Giselle unfolded it. A simple crayon drawing showed 3 people outside. A tall man stood sketched in dark crayon wearing a heavy coat. Beside him was a figure with long hair and a gray dress. And a tiny child clutching a round white shape, clearly Pepper. A green tree stood nearby, decorated with what seemed like bright apples. Under a warm yellow sky, Giselle stared at the page. She carefully folded the drawing and slid it into her desk drawer. It was spared from the trash bin where useless company files normally ended up. Late that evening, Giselle received an email from an untraceable account. The message contained only 9 words. "You're being sold and you don't know it yet." Attached was an image of a contract clause she signed 6 months ago. A massive merger deal with Vantage Tech, spearheaded by Isaac Crane. The hidden loophole rested at the very bottom of Section 9. She immediately dialed her legal team. Her top attorney never answered. An assistant called back 40 minutes later with a highly rehearsed excuse. Giselle sat frozen at her desk after the call, staring at a framed mission statement across the room, lost in her own racing thoughts. Notice the quiet strength here. Dominic stood completely still by the office window. "Do you know anything about this?" she asked him quietly. Calm and collected, he replied, "Not enough yet, but I am looking." The dinner with Isaac Crane was scheduled for Thursday, perched high on the 40th floor of the Meridian Hotel. It was the kind of place where dim lighting tries to make powerful people look entirely at ease. Crane was 62 years old. He possessed that calculated warmth of men who know looking harmless is far more effective than trying to act tough. He stood as Giselle arrived, offering a display of perfectly rehearsed charm. Next, he ordered a vintage that cost more than a family pays for rent in a month. He spared Dominic, her quiet bodyguard, a single brief glance. It was the sharp look of a man who realized this quiet guard might actually be worth remembering. The dinner proceeded with the quiet, calculated steps of a carefully staged performance. 2 heavy hitters who silently agreed to play along with the theater of the evening. Crane smoothly transitioned to discussing the Vantage partnership. He tossed out corporate words like synergy and family without shame. By smoothly mentioning 3 of her new initiatives, he showed he had done his homework before tonight. Now look closely. Over the main course, he dropped his trap with total effortless calm. The Q4 benchmarks, naturally, will be our moment of alignment considering Section 9. Giselle quietly set her fork down. She acted with the rigid discipline of a leader who refuses to let her body betray her mind. Her stomach plummeted, but she kept her composure and simply replied, "Of course." Crane offered a warm smile, showing the smug confidence of someone who thought he had already won. "I want to be completely clear, Giselle, I am not your enemy. I am simply pragmatic." She stared at him. "I appreciate the clarity, Isaac." Inside the security vehicle, the silent city blurred past in streaks of amber and white. Dominic drove in absolute silence. Neither of them spoke a word for 20 minutes. Finally, Giselle broke the quiet. "Did you read the contract before taking this detail?" "First morning," Dominic replied. "Section 9, Section 14, and Appendix C." A heavy pause followed. She studied his eyes in the rearview mirror. "Why would you bother reading my corporate contracts? I can't protect you if I don't understand the battlefield you're standing on." She watched him in the mirror. He remained completely, calmly focused on the road. Yet, his tight jaw revealed a quiet tension that had been carefully hidden during the dinner. He had mastered his composure at the restaurant just like she did, a quiet shield she had completely missed until now. That realization settled heavily in her chest, a quiet and profound truth. Now let us look closer. 3 nights later, the security log showed an 11-minute gap. No video footage, no error codes to explain the blackout, only a silent empty void. An impossibility under their advanced system architecture, unless that sudden gap was manually engineered by a patient insider who knew exactly how to quiet the network. Dominic spotted the quiet anomaly during his routine midnight review. He remained silent, choosing not to sound the alarm. Instead, he quietly backed up the file, closed the log, and sat alone in the dark office, calmly studying that empty 11-minute window. He had spent 4 quiet years in a Delta Force unit tracking internal network security breaches. High-stakes operations where the real threat was never a loud frontal assault but a quiet rot inside trusted walls. He knew exactly how the silent, unseen foundation of corporate betrayal was built. He was staring right at it. Hunter Voss controlled the entire security camera system. Voss kept a hidden number on his phone, and as you and I know, he was there during those exact 11 minutes. Dominic closed his laptop, calmly shifting his attention to something far more real. You and I finally discover the quiet truth about Claire on night 12. His little girl Luna began coughing around 3 that afternoon. Nothing serious. By 6, she had a low fever and the quiet, stubborn look of a kid hiding her pain. Dominic stepped into Giselle's office at 6:15, speaking calmly, asking in his usual quiet way if he could clock out at 7 instead. Giselle grabbed her coat. He held her gaze steadily. "You don't need to go." "I know," she replied. His place sat 14 floors up, 12 blocks north. Clean, tight, and completely bare of any ostentatious clutter, except for one bright corner. That small space belonged to Luna. Colorful kid drawings covered the wall in a thick, messy gallery. Brightly colored books sat in a calm, orderly stack by height. A low basket held stuffed animals arranged in a quiet way only a child understands. Giselle waited on the bed while Dominic calmly prepared soup in the small kitchen. Luna stared straight up at her from the pillow, calmly sizing her up to see if this stranger had anything real to say. "Do you have a mother?" Luna asked softly. "Yes," Giselle answered. "Is she around?" "She is busy. We do not see each other much." Luna weighed those quiet words calmly, like a judge evaluating silent, powerful evidence. "My dad is busy too," she said, "but he is always here." Later, with the child asleep and the bowls washed, they sat in calm silence over hot tea. The quiet building settled deeply into the night. City lights pressed softly against the dark window pane. Giselle finally asked about Luna's mother. He remained silent, so deeply still Giselle almost regretted pushing past his calm, unyielding boundaries. Then he slowly spun his cup once, quietly revealing his wife was named Claire. She died in a terrible car crash 3 years ago, when little Luna was only 3. He was deep in a combat mission when the call came, silently taking a military transport home within 6 hours. He formally quit the military within 60 days, never once looking back with regret. He shared this tragedy plainly, without begging for pity. Real strength never relies on boastful words or cheap sympathy. Giselle did not try to force the empty standard apologies people usually offer up. She absorbed the heavy truth in silence. "Is that why you always stay exactly one step back?" He locked his steady gaze with hers, and for the very first time since they met, his calm stoicism cracked. He was no longer just a guard hiding behind a shield. It revealed a deep, quiet, and undefended power. He calmly refused to answer, yet his steady gaze never wavered. "Follow me closely." By morning, she hired a private investigator kept entirely secret from her own company. She gave this secret contact the private number written on Dominic's single, unadorned slip of paper. The surprising answers arrived in just hours. That unlisted number led directly to Samuel Holt, a retired brigadier general who commanded Dominic's elite unit for his final 2 years. Holt was the calm, hidden hand who had sent that 12-page file. The general knew about Crane, tracking him silently far longer than she ever had. Giselle studied the name on the report and slowly leaned back, silent and calculating. She stared at the ceiling for a second, whispering softly to herself in that completely empty office. Her quiet whisper revealed the truth. "I am surrounded and never even noticed." The critical shareholder meeting finally arrived on Tuesday. Isaac Crane hid his trap behind loud corporate noise, a routine performance review and fake talk about team alignment. But Dominic was quietly, calmly watching. For 11 days, he tracked every single silent signal. What he caught in the last 48 hours went way beyond standard corporate security. Someone had accessed 2 of the main building's service elevators. They used fake maintenance badges after hours, bypassing the entire security logging system. 3 outside guests checked in under a generic consulting cover, a group name that completely bypassed the Nexara database. By Monday night, sensors on the 38th floor showed a 6-second blind spot. Just 6 seconds of a moving shadow before the screen went completely dark. Someone had quietly hacked the grid instead of just trying to hide. "You and I know real professionals never panic." Dominic calmly connected the dots on his screen. Someone planned to breach the Nexara network. They targeted the main server during the meeting, trapping every corporate boss inside, completely blind to the silent threat behind them. That server protected data for 900 major corporate accounts. In a hostile takeover, those stolen secrets were worth more than the entire merger. He had exactly 40 minutes left. He moved like a ghost, no running, no shouting, drawing absolutely zero attention to himself. Just the calm, unstoppable focus of a professional who knew exactly what to do. After sweeping the lower floors, he secured the main corporate boardroom. He placed Madison safely beside Giselle. Then he slipped up the back fire stairs to the 38th floor in absolute silence. The hostile strike team was already there. 4 men strolled toward the servers with the arrogant swagger of amateurs who thought nobody was watching. They were wrong, and what followed was not some loud, drawn-out brawl. Long fights only happen when amateurs try to prove who is stronger. Dominic had spent 7 years learning to end doubts in absolute, deadly silence. Watch this closely. He moved without a single wasted gesture, showing zero hesitation and absolutely no flashy ego. The first 2 men were neutralized instantly, dropping to the floor before the third even realized what was happening. The third attacker rushed him from the left. Dominic anticipated that angle the moment he saw how they and the fourth stood. The loudest, most muscular man in the crew lasted the longest, exactly 11 seconds. With 4 men down, Hunter Voss stepped from the hallway holding a drawn weapon. He wore the cold, empty expression of someone playing a heavily rehearsed role. "I need 15 minutes, Hunter said. "Stand down and nobody gets hurt." Dominic just stared at him calmly, ignoring the sharp pain in his left shoulder. No bones were broken, but it throbbed. Blocking out the pain, he calmly replied, "I don't have 15 minutes. True strength strikes in total silence. Real strength stays completely quiet." While Hunter relied on empty, loud threats, Dominic operated only on absolute, cold necessity. And that kind of necessity has a brutal edge in tight spaces. 2 minutes later, heavy boots pounded up the fire stairs as the corporate security team finally arrived. Hunter Voss was already slumped against the concrete wall, his hands bound, wearing a look of total defeat. Behind that tough exterior lay the deep shame of a loud man who bet against the wrong, quiet opponent. Downstairs, inside the quiet executive boardroom, CEO Giselle Park sat calmly at the head of the long table. 31 anxious shareholders and Isaac Crane sat directly across from her. She had received the quiet update through her hidden earpiece just 60 seconds earlier. True power never flinches. She simply absorbed the news and kept her expression completely locked down. Crane was still talking, and she quietly let him finish his arrogant speech. Then she calmly announced, "This board meeting is postponed. The details will be explained by the police in just a few minutes." She let a silent second stretch out, locking eyes with Crane with the cold focus of someone done playing games. Section 9 will be contested under Clause 22B, which allows total cancellation in any case of proven partner fraud. "I have that proof right here." Crane froze instantly. "I have been gathering this file," she added, "for 8 quiet days." The local emergency room was not where Dominic planned to spend his Tuesday afternoon. Notice how he handles this. He waved off the paramedics with a quiet shrug, dismissing any unnecessary fuss. Giselle intercepted him in the company lobby while the police secured the chaotic crime scene. She took one look at his bleeding shoulder and torn shirt, then quietly said, "I am driving." He opened his mouth to argue, but she silently raised her car keys. At the reception desk, she recited his full name and insurance details entirely from memory. She had quietly studied his security file the very weekend he was hired. A small detail she had never seen the need to bring up. The nurse looked at her, then at Dominic, keeping her face completely blank and free of any judgment. Once inside the quiet exam room, they waited for the doctor to arrive. Giselle grabbed sterile gauze from the metal shelf and calmly began cleaning the deep cut on his arm. She stepped right in without asking, a quiet confidence he silently respected. "Do you actually know how to do this?" he asked. "No," she replied, "but I learned fast." He watched her steady hands work for a long, silent moment. Little Luna arrived 35 minutes later with Madison by her side. Madison called the babysitter and rushed over the moment she could not reach them. The young girl bolted through the doorway, clutching her toy under one arm as she ran. She crossed the floor to her father's bed in 4 quick strides. She squeezed his hand tightly without a single word. That quiet, desperate grip told Dominic everything about her terrifying ride over, louder than crying ever could. Then Luna turned. She studied Giselle with the quiet, serious assessment she reserved for truly important things. "Is Miss Park the reason Dad got hurt?" she asked quietly. Dominic answered, "No. Dad got hurt because of exactly what his security job required." Luna considered this in silence. The logic made absolute sense. She turned back to the CEO, and whatever quiet truth she read in Giselle's expression seemed to answer a deeper question she never spoke out loud. "Can you please stay?" Luna asked. "I do not want Dad alone while he is hurt." We know exactly why. Giselle looked at Dominic. "You and I know real power is quiet." He just stared at the wall above his bed, studying the plaster with absolute silent focus. She quietly dragged her chair closer to the wall beside him, sitting down without a word. "Okay," she whispered. By 11 at night, the clinic hallway had settled into heavy stillness. Luna slept peacefully on the opposite bench, using Giselle's folded jacket as a makeshift pillow. Her toy Pepper was tucked snugly between the little girl's chin and chest. Giselle sat completely solidly still. Her hand rested gently on the bench, keeping a quiet, protective watch near Luna's shoulder. Dominic lingered in the exam room doorway, discharged yet anchored, feeling no need to rush. His battered shoulder was finally bandaged. He wore a fresh shirt Madison had brought from his place, alongside his daughter's packed bags. Watch him here. He just stood there, observing them under the yellow lights, keeping silent for a very long time. True strength never needs to boast. Giselle met his gaze, sharing a completely silent understanding. Outside, the city buzzed with its usual chaotic energy, with police sirens echoing faintly miles away. Just the steady hum of midnight traffic, a background world that never stops for a private crisis. Dominic calmly stepped back inside. Sitting on the opposite side, he watched his sleeping daughter rest safely between them, with her toy right in the center. Minutes passed before Giselle quietly murmured, "Luna added to the drawing." He just listened as she added, "The piece she gave me last week. I kept it on my desk. She snuck in this morning before I arrived and drew something new." "What was it?" "A tree," Giselle answered softly, "right outside the house." Dominic remained perfectly silent. Above them, the cheap fluorescent hallway light buzzed with a steady hum. Luna breathed in that steady rhythm of a child who felt perfectly safe, knowing her dad silently kept the dangers away. It was the first moment of true peace in that exhausting, brutal day. Or maybe the first time in years, if you and I are being honest. The edge of Dominic's mouth twitched upward, just a little. Unspoken, quiet, but it was undeniably the beginning of something.